Hello, welcome to my video. It's lovely to have you here. Honestly, such a treat. So glad you could pop in. Would you like a cuppa? We're talking about remakes today, because I've recently played the Silent Hill 2 remake, and I have thoughts. Anyone who's watched a few of my older videos, mostly the nearly 3-hour Resident Evil 2 video, will be aware that I'm a fan of horror in most of its forms, really. That could be a good book like the absolute classic Frankenstein, or H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Oh, I love that one so much. It's not just the classics I like, you've got modern classics within literature as well. World War Z by Max Brooks, really underrated novel there, and that's saying a lot because people do recommend it. It's not unheard of, it's just underrated. And honestly, it's not just novels and books, films as well have given us some absolute masterpieces within the horror genre. You've got Alien, The Thing, and honestly, another underrated gem here for you to check out if you're interested is the film 1408. It is absolutely amazing. It's about an evil fucking room, and that's all you need to know. It's really good. Moving on from my little rant, I'm getting off topic. I'm doing that thing where I just rant. We're here to look at gaming, namely two of the giants within the horror gaming scene, Silent Hill and Resident Evil. And it's no secret that I'm an intense Resident Evil fan, but even I have to put my hands up and admit that probably the best horror game ever made belongs not to the Resident Evil series, but instead to the Silent Hill series. Now that game is of course Silent Hill 2, and what I love is the cosmic horror of the town of Silent Hill, pulling in and then corrupting the pain and trauma of its victims. Very few games, nay, maybe no others, do this as well as Silent Hill 2 does. I do intend to go into the plot of Silent Hill 2 more in my next video, where I'll be talking a little bit about my own CPTSD, as well as how Bloober Team has managed that subject both within their past and within their present with the Silent Hill 2 remake. But for now, what I want to do is compare how both the Silent Hill series and the Resident Evil series have managed their respective modern remakes. Now I say modern remakes because both series have had attempts at remastering and remaking games within their series in the past, but I want to focus on the more modern remakes today within this video. Although, I must admit, looking at and comparing the Resident Evil 1 remake to the Silent Hill 1 remake is a very fun idea for the future that I very well may come back to, because that does sound like fun. Today, however, we will be looking at and comparing the 2019 remake of Resident Evil 2 to the 2024 remake of Silent Hill 2. Both games are remakes of fan favourites within their respective series. Both games are the second numbered entry within their series, and both games have drastically changed the original, both in terms of the gameplay and the story. But what I've found interesting after playing the Silent Hill 2 remake is just how differently the two series approach the idea of a remake. They have such a different idea of how to remake a game, and that's what I really want to look at here today. So, without any further ado, let's do further. Resident Evil 2 sees both rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy and biker Claire Redfield entering the Midwestern Raccoon City, only to find it overrun with zombies and other various nasty monsters. After both characters make it into the Raccoon City Police Department, they begin to uncover the truth behind the outbreak. They discover that the pharmaceutical corporation Umbrella is responsible for the outbreak that currently plagues the city. You see, Umbrella has been experimenting with various viruses, namely the T and G viruses, selling both the viruses and the resulting monsters to various global governments, terrorist organizations, or really just anyone wanting to kill a lot of people while avoiding blame. The themes of unchecked power, corruption and greed are obvious within this story, and that remains true within the remake as well. When looking at the plot and story of Resident Evil 2, the biggest difference between the original and the remake are the ways that it handles the A and B scenarios. So, a little bit of history for you. Back in 1998, do I remember? I'm so old. So, back in 1988, the OG Resident Evil 2 came on 2 discs. There was one for Leon and one for Claire. Depending on whose story you played first, the events of the game would play out slightly differently. For example, if you play as Claire first, then she arrives first to the RPD and spots a little girl running around the station unattended. Now eventually she finds this little girl and learns that her name is Sherry. As both Claire and Sherry attempt to escape the RPD, they are confronted by the corrupt police chief Irons, who is infected with the G-Virus by William Birkin, Sherry's father. Claire fights the G-Adult that rips itself free from Irons' chest before she's separated from Sherry, who is then infected with the G-Virus by her mutated father. This forces Claire to venture into Umbrella's secret lab below the city in order to cure Sherry. Then, you play Leon's campaign second, where he meets the corporate spy Ada Wong shortly before reporter Ben Bertolucci gets killed by Sherry's dad, forcing Leon to fight the mutated William Birkin. After Leon wards off the mutated Birkin, he follows Ada into the sewers and uncovers Umbrella's secret lab, and it's here within this lab that he learns of Ada's true nature as a corporate spy, before she is seemingly killed as the lab itself destructs. But this story is completely different if you play as Leon first, because it's Ben Bertolucci who gets infected by William, not Chief Irons. So Leon has to fight the G-Adult that rips itself free from Ben's chest, instead of Leon fighting William Birkin. This means that it's Claire that now fights William, which in turn means that William isn't able to infect Sherry and she never gets infected. Claire then does venture into Umbrella's lab, but it's to find a way out of the city before it's too late. Within the original 1998 Resident Evil 2 game, the whole story changes depending on which character you play as first. You basically get 2 different stories, all depending on which character you play as first. If you count both Leon and Claire's playthroughs separately, then that gives you 4 unique scenarios to play through in the original Resident Evil 2. You have the Claire A, Leon B scenarios, and then the Leon A, Claire B scenarios. I love this about the original game, but it's simply not the case with the Resident Evil 2 remake, and this is because of the lore and story that occurs after the events of Resident Evil 2. You see, the Resident Evil series is, and this is one of the things I absolutely love about it, it's one massive continual story that started in 1996 and continues to this very day. Now Sherry has to get infected by her father during Resident Evil 2 because that infection is a major plot point in Resident Evil 6, meaning that the Resident Evil 2 remake was really up against a wall when remaking its story, because during the original 1998 game, nothing about the series had been written yet, which meant that it was free to have different diverting plots based on who you played as first. But the remake, well, it has to fit into the canon events that we now understand that have taken place during the events of this game. The RE2 remake is beholden to the series lore now. This means that no matter who you play as first, Sherry has to get infected, which means that the plot suddenly has a lot less flexibility than it had in the past. The result of this is that instead of 4 unique scenarios, you now have at best only 2. Outside of that, you can just see the whole game get smaller in the remake. While the original Resident Evil 2 featured giant spiders in the sewers, the remake removed them. The same goes for the crows in the RPD and the giant moth in the Umbrella lab. While Leon fights a G-Adult in the classic game as a boss, both he and Claire have the same Birkin fight in the sewers now, removing the G-Adult boss entirely, although it does appear as a regular enemy now. Whereas in the original game, the player left the sewers via a cable car that led them into the train turntable area, Now that same cable car takes them directly to Umbrella's secret lab, removing the turntable from the remake entirely. During the original Resident Evil 2, you fight Birkin on this turntable as it descends into the lab. Now that section has been folded into Claire's escape sequence. This removes what I think is one of the most iconic locations from the classic Resident Evil 2. Weapons like Claire's bowgun have also been removed from this remake as well. Honestly, a lot of stuff has been removed from the Resident Evil 2 remake, making it just a much smaller game when you compare it to the original classic. The original game had 4 scenarios that all felt unique and interesting to play through. The remake has only 2, but even then, so much content has been removed in the remake that most of the puzzles are shared between the Leon and Claire scenarios, meaning that while the remake does technically have 2 scenarios to play through, they don't feel nearly as unique and interesting as they did during the original game. What Resident Evil 2 Remake does, for better or for worse, is contract the original classic down to its most important, iconic and enjoyable moments. Where there were 2 trains in the original, now there's only 1, but the placement of that 1 train feels more grounded in the reality of the world it exists in. Where there was a wide range of puzzles, now there are much fewer, but each one of them feels more realistic and diegetic. Where the original game had 2 distinct stories, now you only have 1, but it's no longer breaking any law and fits in much better with the later ongoing games and their narratives. Resident Evil 2's remake believes in the quality over quantity approach. What this means is that the first playthrough will undoubtedly be amazing, but that comes at the cost of later playthroughs and ultimately the game's replay value. I'm not here to pass judgment on whether I think the Resident Evil 2 original is better than its remake, as I love both. But when it comes to that remake, I do miss a lot of the removed content. At the same time, it's impossible to deny that this version of the game just fits in so much better with the ongoing themes, characters, and narrative that the series is continuing to tell. Sure, it's a smaller game, but every unnecessary moment or bit of fluff from the original has been removed, and it delivers a refined, albeit contracted version of Resident Evil 2. Now that we understand the Resident Evil 2 remake, let's move over and have a look at the Silent Hill 2 remake. The story of Silent Hill 2 sees James Sunderland being called to the mysterious town of Silent Hill when he receives a letter from his deceased wife Mary, who passed away 3 years ago from an unnamed disease. Now, unbeknownst to James, both Angela Oresco and Eddie Dombrowski have also been summoned by Silent Hill as well. During his time within Silent Hill, James meets up with Angela, who explains that she's looking for her mother, or as she says, Mama, and Eddie, who seems to be running from something. We learn during our nightmarish journey through Silent Hill that James is dealing with the guilt of having killed his wife Mary. This happened after years of him caring for her, the medical bills piling up, and the life that he believed he had with her being destroyed in front of him. After years of having to look after her, watching her suffer, watching her in agony and pain, watching her go from so much pain that she just keeps wishing that she would die so that the pain could end, to being terribly afraid of death and not wanting to die at all. And all of this years of this pain and suffering, watching the person that he loves the most in the world suffer for years, James grows to hate Mary in a way. He grows to resent her, and the life that they could have had together being squandered and destroyed in front of them, and he ends up killing her. He ends up euthanizing her, which is an absolutely horrible thing that he shouldn't have done, but, well, He was in a horrible situation that there was no good way out of. It just so happens he chose the worst way out of it. Especially for Mary. Well, I mean, maybe she did go from saying she wanted to die to saying she was terrified of dying, so who knows? She was in agony, she was suffering, and it's this mystery, that is the whole thing that makes replaying Silent Hill 2 interesting, trying to understand James and his motivation behind what he did, and how the town brings that to life, and the writing is just so good. It's what makes Silent Hill 2 one of the best games ever made. Definitely probably the best psychological horror game ever made. But it's not just James in this town. As I said, there's also Eddie and Angela. Now, Eddie is in this town because after years of being bullied throughout all his school life, he eventually snaps and ends up shooting the dog of one of his bullies. This bully is set to be a career footballer. Eddie destroys that when he shoots the bully in the kneecap, destroying any future this guy has. Eddie then flees after killing the dog and ruining this guy's future, and ends up in Silent Hill, where the town proceeds to torment him until Eddie snaps, just pushing more of this bullying onto him, showing him this same guy, this same bully again and again and again, and Eddie just loses it and ends up a broken person who can't admit that he's wrong, and just starts killing people around him, anyone he sees that he believes to be mocking him, killing them indiscriminately. And this ire eventually turns to James, who towards the end of the game ends up putting Eddie down in self-defense. But then you've got Angela. She suffered years of abuse, physical, psychological, emotional, and sexual, at the hands of her father and possibly even brother as well, with her mother blaming her for it, not the men in her life. And after years of this, Angela snaps and kills her dad in self-defense, and similar to Eddie, flees to Silent Hill. But Angela doesn't get quite as concrete an ending as Eddie does. She manages to live, at least, but she has to live with that trauma, with that knowledge of what she did, and with that complex post-traumatic stress disorder that her bastard of a dad gave her. And she leaves on a rather ambiguous note, contemplating suicide but not made up, knowing that she is going to stay in the town surrounded by her trauma and her pain, because there is no real way to get away from it. There is no happy ending to her story, and it's tragic and sad and painful, really. And that's Angela's story. And then we've got James's ending, who eventually uncovers the truth of what he did to Mary, having, arguably either euthanized her or murdered her, depending on where you fall on that argument. And James, being the main character, has the most amount of endings available, with the original game having 4 serious endings and 2 joke ones. Now, the Silent Hill 2 remake keeps every plot moment from the original game while adding in new moments. For example, in the original game, James meets Angela during the opening of the game in the graveyard when he's first making his way into Silent Hill. He then meets her again within the Blue Creek apartments a little bit later. And within the original game, she then disappears for quite a while, only reappearing towards the latter end of the game within the labyrinth section. And the remake, it gets rid of this strange absence of Angela's character throughout a large portion of the game by giving her an extra scene where James has to make his way through the nightmare version of the town. And while doing so, he ends up meeting up with Angela in the Lakeside Park, where they have a conversation. She ends up having a PTSD episode and just fucking runs away because she's, poor thing, she's fucking traumatized to hell. She's such a tragic character. But we also get to see this expanded nature of the remake within the endings, as they have also been expanded. While the original classic Silent Hill 2 featured 6 endings, the remake now has 8, with 2 more serious ones added on. That means that you get now 6 serious endings and the original 2 joke endings. Simply put, nothing is lost, but more is added. This mentality of nothing lost, more added, extends to the gameplay, which has been expanded as well. While the classic Silent Hill 2 has James exploring the Woodside and Blue Creek apartment buildings, the remake introduces players to the Saul Street apartment buildings that you explore first. It is much smaller than both of the original apartment buildings, but it is still a whole new apartment building that's not in the original game that we get to explore before we ever see the remade versions of those original apartment buildings. And it's not a bad bit of gameplay, it's really good, I like it. And we can see this idea of more equals better in a lot of the little gameplay moments. During the original Silent Hill 2, James jumps down numerous holes during the Silent Hill Historical Society section. He descends first into Toluca Prison, then the Labyrinth, before finally ending up at the other side of the Historical Society on the pier. Now, during the remake, James jumps down his first hole way before that, in the Blue Creek apartments, and this only increases in frequency after that first jump into a strange hole, continuing all the way to the final Lakeside Hotel area. While we get to see all of the original moments of James having to jump down holes, there are just many more on top of those original ones in the remake, and I have to be honest, it gets to the point that the nuance is lost. What I mean by this is that in the original Silent Hill 2, we can see a progression in James's attitude. We can see how he starts off very nervous to jump down that first abyss. He's very apprehensive, you can see it in his body language. But by the time we get to that last endless abyss that he has to jump into, he's lost all sense of self-preservation. It shows how numb James has become. The remake loses this, with James seeming just as afraid during his last jump within the Lakeside Hotel as he was during that very first jump in the Blue Creek apartment building. While we do get more content here, we do get more game, more hours of gameplay, we lose the nuance that made the original Silent Hill 2 the absolute narrative masterpiece that it is. The same can be said about the other interactions that are now just repeated within the remake. James reaches his hand into a strange hole in the Woodside apartments in room 102, and this shows very early on within his story how far James is willing to go in order to find Mary. It's a single early moment in the game, and it's one that represents James's willingness to do almost anything, even if it goes against obvious self-preservation. But during the remake, this single moment loses its meaning as James reaches into dozens of strange holes throughout his time in Silent Hill. Each one uses the exact same animation, meaning that James's reaction to these off-putting holes is the same during his first encounter with them in the Saul Street apartment as it is during his final encounter with them during the nightmarish labyrinth. This reduces James's emotional reactions to the events of the narrative, as the repeated animations keep his character feeling static in a way that just wasn't the case in the original game. And I know I'm repeating myself here, I do know that, but the same goes for the breaking of walls as well. During the original Silent Hill 2, this was a symbolic moment, showing how James is actively breaking down his emotional walls, slowly uncovering the truth about Mary's death, but will also being a slightly ironic little joke on James. You see, he's jumped down a hole and ended up trapped in this strange well, and he ends up finding his way out by smashing down a wall, only to discover that it leads to a prison. It's a beautiful little moment of clever little ironic writing. In the remake, this action of smashing down walls begins very early on in the Woodside apartments, and it continues up until the final Lakeside Hotel section of the game. Now this means that the well is still there, and knocking down that wall and entering into the prison is still there, but its importance and its symbolic weight has been lost underneath a sea of identical moments. It's no longer special because it's just one of a myriad of identical moments now. Everything that made that one moment special in the original game has been lost in a torrent of identical moments. I'm not saying the Silent Hill 2 remake is bad, by the way. I'm really not. I genuinely love my time with it. And as with the Resident Evil 2 remake, what I want to do within this video is have a look at the good and the bad of how these games were remade. The Silent Hill remake really does expand in a lot of good ways as well. That extra scene with Angela in the lakeside park is incredible. It adds a lot to both her character and the dynamic between her and James. In a similar sense, I love how the town of Silent Hill now feels more detailed, and with that just real and alive. Bloober Team managed this by allowing the player to enter a lot more of the buildings, even if they aren't vital to the main progression of the game and the story. While I have been over the negative effects of these repeated actions, I do want to mention that them being repeated so many times adds some new symbolism into the game. Namely, it shows how James continues to reach blindly searching for some sort of closure to his trauma, no matter how uncomfortable it seems. And this can be seen by him literally continually reaching into dark, unpleasant holes, hoping to find something, breaking down the dozens of walls he's put up to protect himself from that horrible truth along the way, diving deeper and deeper into Silent Hill's hell to do so. And then you have the enemies. In the original game, the enemies all acted rather similar, but now they act very unique and how you would expect the sort of thing they are to act. Here's an example. The mannequins, the double-legged weird-ass monsters that creep me out, they used to just stay still until you got close to them and then they'd start attacking you. Pretty basic. Now they actively hide in the environment and they will try and ambush you. And towards the latter half of the game, they gain the ability to climb up walls like spiders, so they very much could be ambushing you from above on one of the walls or something, and it becomes terrifying whenever you sort of think one of these creepy ass mannequins might be around you, and you start really becoming paranoid for them. It's brilliant. And yeah, a lot of the stuff added does improve the game, but there's also just a lot of repeated actions that kill what were important moments in the original game. Now that we've looked at Silent Hill 2, let's take what we've learned about both games and bring that together. We can break down what we've learned into two real styles of remaking a classic game here. Resident Evil 2's remake contracts the original game. Any unnecessary areas are removed, any monsters that appeared far too briefly were cut, weapons that failed to leave an impact were purged, and this delivers a more polished experience at the cost of replayability. During the original Resident Evil 2, you had 4 scenarios to play, each taking around 5 to 6 hours each, giving you around 20 hours of pretty much unique content. In the remake, you have 2 scenarios, but with a lot of repeated content, leaving you with only around 8 to 9 hours of unique content. While it's less than the original game, it is undoubtedly of higher quality, with every moment of the gameplay and story feeling polished to a mirror shine. The Resident Evil 2 remake is considered to be one of the best games in the Resident Evil series, and it's because of this quality over quantity approach that that's the case. That being said, I do miss a lot of the cut content, I really do. Meanwhile, Silent Hill 2's remake expands on its original game, stretching every single moment that was important in the original out into a series of repeated actions, delivering a longer, more in-depth version of the original game, but at the cost of some of that nuance that the original really perfected. When I finish the original Silent Hill 2, I'm very often eager to jump right back into a new game, all in order to try and find another one of the many endings. I can't say I felt that way when I finished the remake of Silent Hill 2. It felt long enough that I was content when I finished my first playthrough, content enough that I didn't want any more. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy my time with the game, because I most certainly did, I can assure you of that. I think that the Silent Hill 2 remake is without a doubt an amazing game. Easily Bloober Team's most impressive release to date, that is for certain. So, which approach do you think worked best? That contracted content of Resident Evil, or the expanded nature of Silent Hill? I don't think I know personally, I don't think I know what I think works best. And to be honest, I was hoping that by untangling all of my thoughts on this subject within this video, I would have a much clearer answer to that question, but I sit here now recording this and I just don't. On the one hand, I wish that Resident Evil 2 had expanded on the original game, with new areas to explore, new weapons to play with, and entirely new what-if scenarios based around the actions you take during the game. I really wish we had gotten to see the giant spiders, the crows and the moths that were all cut from the remake, and I absolutely mourn the loss of that train turntable because it felt like a classic location that was just needlessly removed. Yet, I can't argue with the quality of the Resident Evil 2 remake that we did get. Like the original Resident Evil 2, I think that the remake is a timeless classic that will live on well beyond its time. On the other hand, while playing the Silent Hill 2 remake, there were points where I wished that the game would stop making me repeat the same actions again and again, over and over, knocking down enough walls for James to count as a one-man demolition crew. It killed all nuance and subtle symbolism of that original game, but it did give us a version of Silent Hill 2 that felt more seated within its own world, with subtle connections to the other games in the series. Some of the new moments added to the existing story work so well that they feel like they could have been written by the original writer of Silent Hill 2 themselves. Like, if you told me Team Silent had written some of these moments, I'd be like, yeah, of course they did. Bloober Team did such a good job there. Like, I honestly do feel like the original game is lesser for losing those specific moments. Which means that the Silent Hill 2 remake, it did do a lot of good there. It did a lot right. Which brings me back to my point, that I don't know which technique is the better one. While they have their ups and their downs, I'm glad that we still have the original games to play, because I would hate to have either remake outright replace the original game. All 4 games deserve to exist because they all do things right and they all do things wrong. I think my biggest fear is that the newer, younger fans that are starting to play and will start to play these games in the future, that they won't go back and play the original games. Or that the publishers will just not make these original games available to play on modern hardware. To be honest, this can already be seen with Silent Hill 2. While you can purchase the original Resident Evil 2 on Steam, GOG and the PlayStation Store, only the lackluster and rather infamously bad Silent Hill 2 HD Remaster is available, and even then it's only available on the Xbox Store. This means that if you don't own a modern Xbox, you can't play any version of the original Silent Hill 2 now. And that in turn means that if any newer, younger fans want to play the absolute classic that is the original Silent Hill 2, they are only able to do so via the worst version of it, and that's on a single storefront. Like it or not, most people now will only ever experience Silent Hill 2 via the remake. And that's an absolute fucking shame, because of how exceptionally impressive that original game is, even when compared to its remake. I really hope this changes soon. I really hope that Konami make the original Silent Hill 2 available on more storefronts, because it really needs to be. Before I bid you adieu, I would like to ask you, what do you think works better? The contracted remake or the expanded remake? You should let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you think. My channel is very small at the moment, and what that means is I can reply to every comment I get, and I do. So yeah, please tell me what you think. I genuinely would love to hear, because, I mean, I make these videos to share my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinion. So, you know, let me know. And while you're at it, also, you know, subscribe, like the video, all of that stuff really does help. But honestly, just thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, if you've watched to this point in the video, you're a fucking real one. Like, thanks. And I'll see you on the next video. Well, I won't, because when you think about it, I can't see you during these. That's not how YouTube works. I can't see you through your camera or shit. Like, that's not how this works. I mean, I will be there in the comment section reading any comments you leave, so I guess I will see your comment if you leave one. So that's kind of a way to see you, I guess. But that's only if you leave... I may see your comment if you decide to leave a comment on this or the next video. Yeah, it's just not as catchy, is it? Anyway, thank you for watching. Donate to your local LGBTQI charity. And have a lovely night. Good night.